Between now and Selection Sunday on March 13th, there are still tons of regular season college basketball action to go. Plus, all of the conference tournaments and WagerTalk and Sports Memo are announcing their March Madness Bonanza special, which includes the rest of college basketball regular season, conference tournaments, NCAA tournament through the national championship, and any plays released in the NIT or CBI tournaments. Sign up for this promotion now at your favorite handicappers homepage and get the rest of the college basketball season through the national championship on Monday, April 4th for just $177. That's under $5 a day for one of the best betting experience in sports. Act fast as the March Madness Bonanza special is only available for a limited time.
It is Monday, February 28th, the last day of February. No leap year this year, Teddy covers. So we get March tomorrow on Tuesday, March 1st. And we're going to look at some basketball all week long here on Wager Talk today because we're inching ever so close to March Madness, which officially begins tomorrow because it is the first day of March. And we don't forget, we have conference tournaments coming up this week as we speak. And then, of course, the big boy conference tournaments next week. And then just 2 weeks from today, we will be talking about the NCAA bracket because it will be out. So the time is approaching. Going to do a lot of basketball talk, both college and pro, this week here on Wager Talk today. I am Steve Merril, filling in for the Prez. He's getting an advanced start on March Madness. He's heading south as we speak to hang out with Joe Ranieri. In the meantime, I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Teddy Covers, WagerTalk.com. Teddy, great Monday shows we always have. We have the Vegas duo, Marco D'Angelo and both Bryan Leonard, looking at some college hoops, some pro basketball, and also some NHL, including a big game tonight, Baylor, Texas. They're going to give us the side and the total. They're going to both look at that one. Also, we've got some NHL, as I mentioned. Also, Wyoming, San Diego State, a late-night game. Syracuse, North Carolina. You've got a big game breakdown with the Grizzlies and Spurs in between. But before we get to all that, Teddy Covers, what did you learn this weekend in the wide world of sports?
We're going to split it up into what we learned on Saturday and what we learned on Sunday. What we learned on Saturday is that top 10 basketball teams are capable of losing games. 7 top 10 college basketball teams lost on Saturday. That's the most ever in a single day. You know, we saw number 1 Gonzaga, number 2 Arizona, number 3 Auburn, number 4 Purdue, number 5 Kansas, number 6 Kentucky. The first time ever the top 6 teams in the polls all lost the same day. And number 9 Texas Tech all lost. Some of them were embarrassing. Gonzaga got their butts kicked at St. Mary's. Arizona got clobbered at Colorado. Worst team ever by a number 2 team in the AP poll against an unranked opponent since Virginia lost in the opening round as the number 1 seed a few tournaments back. And then we had with Michigan State hitting the bucket at the buzzer to win. We had a tight game where Auburn couldn't hit a 3-pointer against Tennessee, et cetera, et cetera. Does this mean that there's chaos coming in college basketball when March rolls around tomorrow? Not necessarily. Does this mean that the top teams are weaker this year? Not necessarily. All it means is that the scheduling dynamics on this particular Saturday and the end game results on this particular Saturday worked against a whole bunch of top teams. Good teams are going to lose games in every sport. They don't win them all. And what we saw on Saturday in college basketball was a bevy of top seeds going down, which might offer a little value on some of these teams moving forward. Then yesterday, we saw the Warriors do something pretty special, which is blowing a 19-point lead in the fourth quarter. That's the largest blown fourth quarter lead in the NBA this season. If you were shopping around in game, you could have had 25-1 in game for the Dallas Mavericks last night, which is a nice little score for one basketball game for one quarter. And the quotes after the game, Golden State was not happy. Steve Kerr, we did not maintain our grit down the stretch. But he follows up. It's actually good to go through and feel it because this is what it feels like in the playoffs when you're playing against a really good team. Warriors have blown a couple of leads of late. Wouldn't be surprised if Golden State steps up next time on the floor. That's what I learned this weekend. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on some college basketball with you. First of all, I'll be on the college basketball show today at 1:45 Eastern here. Don't forget, we do have college hoops every day at 1:45 Eastern here on Wager Talk TV. And this is, once again, March Madness around the corner. And keep in mind a lot of final last home games, revenge spots. One of those upsets on Saturday night, I actually had a best bet on St. Mary's. Won the game outright as a 10.5-point dog, but they were a 15-0 straight-up home team playing their last home game with revenge. So it was a pretty nice setup there. So, I think there were some situational aspects that played into that on Saturday as well, and just something to keep in mind. But I'm with you, Teddy. I think it's going to be a wide-open tournament. We've seen that for several years now, and there's no clear-cut dominant team in college basketball. We've been saying that all season long. So I do think that's a little bit of a preview of what we might see. But what are your thoughts on this final week of the regular season for a lot of these teams? Do you think you got to tread lightly, or are you like me? You think there's some really good spots here with some of these last home game revenge angles, etc.?
So let's start with this. All right, the best week of the year for betting college basketball is not the opening weekend of the March Madness. The best week for betting college basketball is next week. All right, that's not even close. All right, you will have more games next Wednesday and next Thursday in college basketball, bettable, winnable games, than you'll have in the entire March Madness, the entire Big Dance. Okay, so, and in the Big Dance, every team's coming to play. In conference tournaments, when you do your homework, you find out some teams may not be interested in going balls to the wall, try to win 3 games in 3 days, 4 games in 4 days. And you can find some really good opportunities betting against higher seeded teams as favorites that aren't necessarily as interested in winning that game as they will be in winning the Big Dance. So I know that this final week of the regular season for the Power 5 conferences and many of the bigger conferences can be fraught with all kinds of issues. The only thing I'm going to say is it's not a week that I'm looking to not play anything or really reduce my number of plays, but whatever bets I'm making this week in college basketball, this is a double check / triple check week. This isn't one of those weeks where you're looking at stats and going, yeah, this team's stats better than the other. No. You want coaches' quotes. You want local beat writers telling you that teams are focused for that final week of the regular season, because oftentimes you see teams that don't bring the requisite level of focus with the madness just on the horizon.
Yeah, and I think once again, that's why we saw a little bit of a random Saturday, like you said. No, a couple weeks out for some of those teams, but still we're inching closer to the conference tournaments and the look-ahead spots. So tread lightly this week in some aspects, but as I said, there's also some good value. One thing I'll point out real quick, though, is the lines are sharp. We see that in the conference tournaments, the lines are going to be extremely sharp because of all the common opponents, head-to-head matchups for the past couple months. It's more important than ever to have multiple sports books, multiple outs. You should always have that all year long. We preach it here on the show, but you're going to have a lot of games come within a point. You're going to see that here the next couple of weeks, even in March Madness as well. So I highly recommend get that second, third sportsbook account. Get some extra winners for free by getting that extra half point whenever possible. Teddy, let's bring in Marco D'Angelo. Let's keep the college basketball talk going with Marco from WagerTalk.com. And Marco, there's a big game tonight in the Big 12, Baylor, Texas. I actually did my top 25 preview on Friday night for the Saturday games. I mentioned St. Mary's here on this channel in that video. I also mentioned Baylor over Kansas. It was a big revenge spot for Baylor on Saturdays. They'd been blown up over 20 on the road earlier in the season. They got their revenge. I actually had that as a free play on my page at WagerTalk.com. Now they take to Texas here on just 1 day travel and rest after the big Kansas win, Marco. I know your favorite saying, is it a fat and happy, fat and sassy? Does that apply tonight to Baylor as they go to Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. And one final note on Saturday's results. You talked about all of the big teams going down. Note, it was a Saturday. If you remember last week on the show, I said Saturdays, you look at the home teams and you give them a little bit more of a home court advantage on Saturdays. And all 6 of the top 6 teams in the country all lost on the road on Saturday. So, something to look at with your handicapping. But carrying off of that and moving to this game here, you've got Baylor. Yeah, you set me up perfect, Steve. You got them coming off a big revenge spot on Saturday against Kansas, and now they got to travel with just 1 day rest to go play Texas. Texas won on the road on Saturday, a big come-from-behind win for them. West Virginia had control in the second half of that game, and once again let a game slip away as Texas stole a win on Saturday. They're bringing that momentum back home to face a Baylor team, and now it is Texas that's the revenging team. And a little side note to that, I always like to look at the situational spots. Well, I already said Baylor's in a bad situational spot here coming off Saturday. But if you go back and look when Texas and Baylor played the first time, guess what? It was Texas coming off of playing Kansas the game before. And that was a bad spot for them, and they ended up losing the next game to Baylor. They were coming off the win against Kansas. So now the roles are reversed. I'm going to go ahead and take the home team here with Texas on Monday night. It is their final home game. Let's call, and I don't know if you can actually call it an upset, a mild upset. I'm going to take Texas tonight over Baylor. Strictly a situational play for me.
So one of the things that always fascinates me is how different handicappers look at the same season revenge angle, where Team A beat Team B. And certainly when you talk about beating college basketball in February, that same season revenge angle is absolutely a piece of the equation, maybe a big piece of the equation. But one of the things that concerns me is when a team wipes out their opponent in that first meeting. And they're like, oh, no, everything's going to turn around the second time around. And Baylor was way better in the first meeting. It wasn't a close game. You talked about the bad spot for Texas, but I thought the matchups worked well for the Bears in this game. Does that concern you at all here? Or is this, the spot trumps all other factors in this game? And it's clearly a spot to go against the Bears.
To me, it's clearly the spot to go against the Bears. I will agree with you, Teddy. If they play 10 times, Baylor's probably going to win 7 or 8 of the 10 times. But this is the one time that I think it's the bad spot for them that I've got to look to that Texas team playing with the revenge. And again, I look at it and you say, yeah, they got smashed. Well, they got smashed also because it was a bad spot for Texas. They were coming off of beating Kansas. That was huge for them. And then they had to turn around in the next game and play Baylor. Throw in the last home game, as I said. Not that the last home games have as much of a bearing as they used to. I mean, when we used to say senior day, Teddy, that meant something, when we were young pups in this business,
when there used to be
20
seniors.
years ago, whenever you had a bunch of seniors that were still there. Now the landscape for college basketball is you got so many one and dones. However, there are in the smaller conferences, you do see players stay for the duration. So I look at the last home game, just a tip for clients, that it means more to me in the mid-major conferences than it does in the Power 5 conferences playing the senior day angle.
Yeah, Marco, excellent point. I brought that up on my college video this past weekend when I was talking about that St. Mary's game. And I referenced earlier how they pulled the big upset. Much more powerful for the mid-major, smaller conference teams because they do have third and fourth year players. You don't see that much with these Power 5. So this past weekend was probably the last home game angles. We're going to work better than this coming week in college hoops. Let's move over to the NBA. By the way, Marco likes, once again, Texas on the side. We're going to look at the total. We're going to give you the bonus over-under pick with Bryan Leonard in a little bit. That is the big ESPN game at 9 Eastern, Baylor at Texas. Speaking of Bryan Leonard, though, look at his Cleveland Cavaliers are struggling, Marco. 1-3 straight up, 0-4 ATS their last 4. The T-Wolves, a tale of two T-Wolves. They come out and upset Memphis the day after the first game back after the break, and then they get shellacked against the Sixers with James Harden's debut last Friday by 31. Maybe the Sixers are really going to be that good now with Harden. Was it a flat spot for Minnesota? This line opened 1.5. The T-Wolves are now a 3.5-point road favorite. Is there still value with Minnesota, or has that been kind of bet out of the price now with the going up 2 points?
Yeah, this is the problem of handicapping the NBA 2022, trying to do it overnight. I sent the play in with Minnesota -1.5, and I knew that the situation was Cleveland's got a couple guys that were listed as questionable, and as you see the line move to 3.5 on Minnesota, you got those two guys that got downgraded from questionable to out, and both of them are guards. And that's a little bit important. And if you've looked, this Cleveland team, the last couple games with the injuries, they have struggled scoring. They only scored 92 points the other night against the Washington team, guys, that played the night before in that epic double overtime game. I think the final score was 157-153. And I know there were a lot of guys that were taking both Cleveland and I think Miami, because both of the teams involved in that 157, 153 game played on back-to-back nights. Lines were inflated. Both home teams won, but both road dogs that played in the shootout managed to sneak in the back door. And every time I see a situation like that, I'm sure you guys will remember it, and I'm dating myself. I don't remember who they played, but it was in the Big East game. Remember the conference tournament game?
Yeah.
There was a
Syracuse, Connecticut.
Syracuse,
Connecticut, I think.
And
Kimball
everyone
Walker
played for
right?
58 minutes, and they all came back the next day and won again, and then won the final. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
I know exactly.
It sounds like you went against Syracuse in that one. Yeah, I always remember that situation, and I thought of that on Saturday when I saw those scores. But for this game here, I still like Minnesota. In Cleveland, you said Bryan Leonard's team, they've played well this year. They are probably, to me, one of the biggest surprises in the NBA this season. But as success comes, people start to catch up to them. And if you look at this team right now, they're 1-3 straight up the last 4, 0-4 against the spread. You go back the last 15 games, they're just 5-10 against the spread. The market eventually corrects itself and usually overcorrects itself. And I think that's what we're seeing now with the Cleveland Cavaliers. As far as Minnesota goes, yeah, that was a horrible spot for them in their last game. They got drilled by Philadelphia. You got James Harden joining Philadelphia. There's a buzz in Philadelphia right now, excitement because they think they found the missing piece and they're going to go places. And let's face it, Minnesota was fat and sassy. Memphis has been playing good basketball. They played the night before and they beat Memphis. I don't think they were mentally prepared for Philadelphia, and the game just got out of hand and was a total blowout. I think you see the A game from Minnesota tonight, and with Cleveland, with the injury situation, thin at the guard position, I think Minnesota can take advantage of that. I'm still going to stay with Minnesota in this game. Obviously, I liked it much better at -1.5 than -3.5, but I still think there is value there with the Timberwolves. And I'll give you a little stat on Minnesota. This is actually a league-wide stat. Over the last 5 years in the NBA, if you play on road teams that are revenging a home loss and they're coming off a home loss of 10 points or more in their last game, blindly playing that angle, 97-58 against the spread the last 5 years. I'll go ahead and take that tonight with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
So Cleveland scored 92 points the other night against the Wizards. They couldn't put the biscuit in the basket at any point during that ballgame. And they still won the game and were one possession away from covering, which speaks about Cleveland's defense. And from a defensive standpoint, even with the cluster injuries the Cavs have at the guard position, man, their low post defense is tough. You don't get anything in the paint against the Cavs, and that's Minnesota's game. Minnesota likes to jack threes, and Minnesota likes to drive and dish against a team like the Cavs with that low post defensive acumen. Does it concern you that Minnesota's game plan just isn't going to work against a team like Cleveland?
Yeah, but for what you're saying as far as the defensive end, I will agree with you there, but I got to look at it the other way. You're talking about how good Cleveland's defense is, and it's going to frustrate Minnesota. I know Minnesota doesn't have a good defense, but when you're talking about comparing it to Washington's, and Cleveland was only able to get 92, and that was coming off a double overtime game on Friday night. How does Cleveland score enough points to beat a quality team like Minnesota? That would be my rebuttal to your question, Teddy. It's which end of the floor do you want to look at? And I just think Cleveland's offense is just not going to run smooth with the cluster injuries. And you need points in the NBA, let's face it. That was a perfect spot for Cleveland the other night. And, they won. Give them credit for that. But they're supposed to blow that team out in that situation.
Yeah, Marco, you mentioned.
Of course, we've seen a whole bunch of money coming in on the under in that ball game as well. For what it's worth, we're talking about all the money coming on Minnesota. We've also seen plenty of money come for the under in that contest. And just in talking by me and you, Marco, that's the play that sometimes you talk something out with someone, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that makes the under makes sense to this better. I'll just leave it at that.
I will agree with you
one of the
100%.
Say one of the maybe the best bet in all of NBA basketball this year, though, has been the T-Wolves over on the road. 24-7 to the over on the road this year. And, of course, they were on a monster overrun in all games. They have cooled off a bit, as you guys know. They've gone under 2 of their last 3, including 1-1 since the break. But, yeah, 24-7 over in all road games for the T-Wolves. But as you guys both laid out, Cleveland is a pure defense, no offense team. They're 20-7 to the under. So trend players are literally having their brains explode as we speak. This is why you got to rely on more than just trends, because you could literally make a case for both the over and the under based on home road trends. And I was going to quickly say, as you pointed out, Marco, Cleveland 5-10 ATS their last 15, and that was after starting the season 28-14 against the spread. So that trend is definitely reversed as well after the best start in basketball. They are actually the best point spread team the first couple months. They've cooled off since. Let's quickly transition over to hockey. Marco, Vancouver at New Jersey. Canucks have been red hot, 3 straight wins. They put up 17 goals in those wins, yet they're a slight dog against a Jersey team that's lost 3 out of 4. Is this purely just because Jersey has a couple days off and Vancouver is unrested? Do you think this is an overreaction with that line?
Well, it always is a situation that you're going to get when teams play back-to-back versus a rested team. We see it in every sport. NBA, it's usually worth maybe a point and a half in the point spread. And you see, 10 to 20 cents in the money line in hockey. But this is one of those ones where, yeah, it's back-to-back, but they're playing the cluster of New York, New Jersey. They got 3 road games where they're going to play New York last night, New Jersey tonight, and then the other New York team to finish off the road trip there. So I'm not as concerned with it. But I can tell you historically, Vancouver the last 2 seasons have not been good when they've played back-to-back games. But I'm going to ignore that tonight in this spot because they are playing such, from New York to New Jersey, you don't even really call that a road game travel-wise. I look at the current form, and you talked about the 3-game winning streak. They've won 5 of their last 6, including the 3 in a row. What I'm looking at is in that 6-game stretch, this team is scoring goals in bushels. They've scored 29 goals in 6 games. That's 4.8 per game. And they're facing a team that is not playing well defensively. New Jersey has allowed 4 goals or more in 7 of their last 9 games. That's not a good recipe for New Jersey to get the win in this game tonight. Also look at New Jersey. You want to talk about 2 teams heading in opposite directions. Last 17 games, New Jersey's just 4-13. And then here's another stat that really sold me on taking Vancouver in this game. New Jersey is just 5-19 at home after playing a game where there was 8 or more goals total scored the last 3 seasons. And for New Jersey, this is a non-conference game. They seem to get, I don't want to say they're so bad. It's hard to say they get up for games, but they do play better whenever it is a conference game versus a non-conference game. They're 5-14 this season against non-conference opponents. I got to take Vancouver in this game. They're the better team overall. They're playing well right now. They're scoring goals against the team that can't stop teams from scoring. You got to ride the momentum in this one, and that's Vancouver.
Yeah, Marco D'Angelo says, don't overthink it. Take the better team, better current form at plus money. Vancouver Canucks at plus $1.05, 105 tonight at 7:30 Eastern on Monday. And Marco, I forgot to mention earlier, it's $9 Monday at WagerTalk.com. You're on a mere 21-7 run on all 4% and 5% plays. That's not too shabby. Do you dare release a 4 or 5% tonight? What do you got going on at WagerTalk.com for $9 Monday?
Well, I've got a college basketball play that we didn't talk about on the show. Nice. And it is my upset shocker. I've got a live dog that I feel not only will cover, has a very good shot of winning this game outright. It's a great spot. I love situations. And when you buy the play, you'll get all of the stats with the game, the trends and angles I'm looking at, and you'll get that scheduling situation that I'm talking about. Head over to WagerTalk and grab it for $9 and grab all the guys, everybody, $9 Monday at WagerTalk.
Yeah, a single play is normally $25, so basically you can get 3 best bets from different cappers for the price of one with $9 Monday. And Marco's on a 21-7 run on 4% and higher plays, and he has a 4% best bet tonight, college upset shocker in college hoops. Teddy, we need a little NBA talk from you. Let's do big game breakdown in 30 seconds. Let's look at Grizzlies Spurs. Teddy covers big game breakdown. We'll be right back.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. Let's go to the association for tonight to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs. Right now, looking at the Wager Talk live odds screen, let's call it San Antonio about an 8.5 point underdog. Total 237 and a half. If you shop around, you can find anything from 237 to 238 on the total as we speak. And this is the last game of the endless rodeo road trip for the San Antonio. The guys were just talking about how the Spurs hung tough in a brutal situation at Miami in their last game, coming off that crazy multi-OT win over the Wizards, the 157-153 game. And then, of course, the following day, we're talking about a team that goes out and hangs tough against a Heat team that's really good. Just a 4-point loss in that ball game. And they did it without DeJounte Murray, who sat out with a bruised knee. They did it without Keldon Johnson. They did it without Jakob Poeltl, both guys sitting with back injuries. And, of course, the money poured in for Miami in that game. And San Antonio was pretty much a wire-to-wire job. Greg Popovich, quote, "We just kept on playing. That's the character of these guys. It's probably the most special thing about them. A young group that keeps on playing. Very, very proud of them." You worry about a quote like that sometimes on the tail end of a long road trip, but it's been by and large a successful road trip for San Antonio. But more than the side in this game, I think the total is worth paying attention to here. Yes, it is a high total, but the Spurs are playing one-way basketball right now. Again, when we talk about pace ratings, Memphis tied for second, San Antonio 4. So these are two of the 4 fastest teams when it comes to pace of play in the NBA. Both teams have been flying over of late. The Spurs have cashed 5 overs in the last 6. The Grizzlies have cashed 8 overs in their last 10. Both teams have, look at their recent games, flying over the total, averaging big points. And, of course, from a defensive standpoint, San Antonio is a one-way team, man. Their offensive execution is real good. Defensively, not so much. Pop is very comfortable playing this up-tempo style, and other teams are playing it with him. I expect a shootout tonight in Memphis and San Antonio. Let's look at this game to get up and over the total. And again, you can find 237s. You can also find 238. Shop around, get the best of the number here, and let's take the Grizzlies and Spurs over 237 in NBA action for Monday. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merril.
Yeah, and they haven't released what games they're going to be talking about on the NBA tip-off show at 4:15 Eastern, but I have a feeling this is a front-runner, Teddy, for the overtime segment on that show today, as it'll be probably the highest scoring game on the board. And by the way, Spurs defense has allowed 52% shooting or worse in 3 of their last 4 games. The one game they didn't, they held the Thunder to 39%. The Thunder by far the worst offensive team in the league. So if you take that one out, they've given up 52% of the other 3 games. So yeah, as you said, no defense whatsoever. And Teddy's got a bonus free NBA play on his page right now. Raptors Nets. He just got one here. If you want a second free play from Teddy, go to his page at wagertalk.com. And while you're there, don't forget he's got 2 best bets for $9 Monday and under the radar angle in the NBA. And I love it, Teddy. A lay it or don't play it smackdown in college hoops. That might be one of the best titles I've seen all season. So once again, second free NBA play and 2 $9 best bets. Teddy covers wagertalk.com. Another gentleman you can find at wagertalk.com for $9 Monday is our next guest, Bryan Leonard. As we keep the Vegas theme going, I feel like the outsider here. We got 3 Vegas guys and then me today on Monday, but it's a good thing. Brian, you always bring the action for the big Monday games. I loved you got both national TV games on ESPN tonight. We're going to look at the total in that Texas-Baylor game in a moment. We've got Marco's side opinion. But let's start with the early game at 7 Eastern tonight in the ACC, Syracuse at North Carolina. How are you approaching this one, Bryan Leonard?
Yeah, it's great to be back here in Vegas, I'll tell you that. It's getting to the point where these flights just across the country is just tearing me up. But it's good to be back home and back in Vegas with all my friends. Yeah, Syracuse, North Carolina tonight. And this is a situation for me where I like to play on teams that are not playing well against teams that are hot. Right now, North Carolina's won 5 out of 6 games, but they are in a revenge situation here. A rivalry sandwich, basically, is they just beat NC State, and they've got Duke on deck. And Duke is their biggest rival. Obviously, NC State is the biggest rival in state. And you got a Syracuse team. I'll get this. These early morning starts are rough on me, but Syracuse is last 2 games. They've lost by double digits to Notre Dame and Duke. Really look bad. I watched their game the other day, in the last game they played, and they didn't look good at all. So they're off of 2 games in which they didn't play well. They're looking to turn it around here. The defense hasn't been nearly the same as Syracuse this year as we've normally seen. But I like the spot here against a North Carolina team that I think is a little bit overrated. I liked it last night at 7.5. Now it's up to 8. So I like the underdog here a little bit better. I think, Marco was just on the show, fat and sassy. I think North Carolina's a little bit fat and sassy here, and they've got Duke on deck. I like the spot here for Syracuse, and now we're getting half a point more than what we were getting last night. So like it even better right now.
Well, let me ask you this, because I was looking at the orange side in this ball game, and I talked myself out of it. Had everything to do with what's going on in terms of the injury problems for Syracuse, particularly in the low post. Jesse Edwards been pretty good for that team as their prominent low post player, a shot blocker, average almost 3 blocks per game, team's second leading rebounder. And since he got hurt, they've been getting slapped around, and that might be a problem against the Tar Heels. Edwards is out for the season. Does that particular matchup with North Carolina so big down low, and Syracuse, Boeheim was making excuses. He said, we just haven't been the same since Edwards got hurt. And those kind of quotes, they stand out like a red flag to me when your coach is making excuses for a player that's hurt and the team's just gotten bombed in their last 2 games. I'm like, no, I'm not getting to Syracuse today. Does that quote concern you?
It always concerns me. It always concerns me when you have that height advantage for North Carolina, very similar to a Kentucky where you think they may be able to dominate on the boards. But I think that's baked into this line. My power ratings do not have this anywhere near what it is right now. So because of the injuries to the guys on the boards for Syracuse and their bigger players, I think that's why we're getting the 8, where we probably might have been getting 5 if they played a little bit healthier. So it is a concern. Anytime you're placing a bet, you've got to be able to look at it from both sides, the side you want to bet on and the side you're betting against. So you've got to be able to take all that into account, and I have taken that into account. And I think the line is just simply too high here. I understand that the Tar Heels will have that advantage, but I think that's built into the line right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup because obviously the way you beat, the Syracuse zone defense over the years, you got to shoot, threes, right? And North Carolina's a team in the past that normally did not take a lot of threes. They're always kind of a big, fast-paced, get points down low transition team. They do take more threes this year, but if you look at Syracuse, no team in the nation, 358 teams, nobody gives up a higher percentage of points from three-point range than Syracuse. It's the most in the country. Over 41% of their opponents' points come from beyond the arc. But North Carolina's shooting 37% from the arc, and they do take more than average. So that, I think, they'll be the key matchup here. It'll be interesting to watch. But from a scheduling spot, it does not look like a great spot, like you said, Brian, for North Carolina, kind of sandwiched between NC State and the Duke rematch. Let's look again at the Baylor-Texas game. That's a 7 o'clock.
Real quick,
yeah.
Because those season-long stats are all with Edwards in the lineup. They're all – I mean, Edwards just missed only the last 2 games. So all those season-long stats right now are flat out lying about what Syracuse can do defensively because their low post stud isn't there. Their shot blocker isn't there. That changes the entirety of that Orange defense. And we saw it very clearly in each of their last 2 games, how different they've looked defensively without Jesse Edwards in the lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the key, obviously, with the zone defense as well, is you got to have somebody that makes it difficult to go down low. So, I mean, this is definitely a different team right now without Edwards. Boeheim, Buddy, and Jim, though. Jimmy and Buddy still in the lineup last I checked. The Boeheim triples with the head coach on the sideline. Brian, we talked earlier about the Texas-Baylor game. That's the 7 o'clock Eastern game. This is the 9 o'clock Eastern ESPN game is Baylor-Texas. And Marco mentioned, he liked the spot for Texas as far as the side. We didn't look at the total, though. How do you think this one plays out? Baylor, once again, coming off that big revenge win against Kansas on Saturday, now traveling on short rest. How are you playing the total on this one? It's around 135.
Yeah, I went back and looked since Marco was on the show and they discussed this a little bit earlier. The big win for Baylor, when you take a look at the shot quality numbers, they were a bit lucky in that game. They should have only won the game by 7. They would have won 74% of the time the way those two teams played in that game. So I think the talk about Baylor and Texas just winning 7 out of 10, yeah, I can agree with that from what Mark, I thought it was a pretty good analysis. From a total standpoint, you match up with two defensive teams that are really good in the half court. Baylor is number 8 in the country. Texas is number 1. So you got two teams that are very good in slowing the opposition down, playing really good half court defense. You got Baylor coming off of that upset win over Kansas. I don't consider it much of an upset, although the line showed that they were the underdog in that game. But they scored 80 points against Kansas. That's not this Baylor team. This Baylor team is a defensive team. If they were to play Kansas 10 more times, I don't think they'd reach 80 in any of those games. It was just one of those games where they shot very well. These two teams played each other just 16 days ago, as was mentioned. 143 points were scored in that game, but if you take a look at the shot quality numbers, which is what these players should have shot in that game based on the shots taken and their season-long stats, it should have only been 133 points. So we're getting a number right now at 133. It's 135 and a half. And since they did play just 16 days ago, they know each other even better. So I think this game will probably be about 130. So we're getting an advantage of 5.5 points on the line for playing the under. I expect this to be a big defensive struggle here. And with the success that Baylor had in the last game, scoring 80 against Kansas, I don't see it here. I think any team that, if they get to 70, they win this game going away. So I look for this game to go under the total.
So Texas has been an over machine of late. They've cashed overs 5 of their last 6. The only under was the aforementioned game against Texas Tech, and that was a brick fest for both teams. 37% shooting for Texas Tech. They made 3 3-pointers for the entire game, and Texas similarly had some rough times. 28% from the floor in that game, just 31% from beyond the arc. So both teams shot really poorly in that first meeting. The total in the first meeting was lined at 129.5, and today we're seeing 135s. I don't understand the betting market adjustment here, Bri. We saw a game stay double digits under the first meeting. It's not much later, and yet the total's been, the opener was 6 points higher than the last time these two teams met. Are the markets telling us something here? Do we expect maybe a different game plan from one of these two teams?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't really pay a lot of attention when teams are on certain streaks going over or under, because everybody who's won on them is continuing to bet on that over. If you get a team that scores a lot, and I understand it, but it's looking at the price of what it is now, and from the way I look at it, all that, they've been on a nice overrun, that brings the line up. So I don't see it. I look to most of the time I'm looking to fade a lot of trends if they don't make a whole lot of sense. And if a team is scoring 6 out of 7, 5 out of 6, like you mentioned, to the over, I think it gives us more advantage to the under. And so that's one of the reasons I took a look at this game, is because I thought the line would come out lower and it didn't. So I'm going to take advantage of it.
And that, once again, is the big Monday game at 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPN, Texas-Baylor. We've looked at those two. Let's look at another national TV game at 9 Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Wyoming and San Diego State. San Diego State at Wyoming. And currently San Diego State's about a 1.5 to 2 point road favorite. Totals around 130. If you want to get to bed early tonight, this one might help you out if you have insomnia. These are two of the best defensive teams in the country. San Diego State, though, can struggle offensively, but Wyoming actually a lot better offensively, I think, than people realize, Brian. And do you think there's some value with them as a home dog tonight?
Yeah, I do. Wyoming's the only team that can score out of the two. Both of them are really good defensively. Wyoming's 14-0, undefeated at home this season. Now they're playing the giant of the conference. Teddy and I live out here in Las Vegas, fans of UNLV basketball. And for as long as I can remember, San Diego State has been the team to beat. I think this Wyoming team has a really good chance to beat them tonight, obviously. Only 1.5, 2-point underdog, but you're getting them on, as I mentioned, an undefeated home court. I think this is the biggest game in Laramie for quite some time. They've got to be able to knock off San Diego State here. And, look at San Diego State. They're only 4-5 straight up on the road. This is an interesting situation where they're playing what I consider to be the best team and probably the best home court in this conference. And you've got San Diego State as a favorite, and they don't even have a winning record on the road this season. And there are some teams in this conference that just aren't very good. And there are a lot of top and bottom, but they haven't really taken advantage of that. The reason I like Wyoming here is the Aztecs' defensive numbers in off-screen plays defensively rank 161st. That is their weakness. Every other shot they take in the half court, they're all very good. But against the off-screen shots, they're only 161st, which is like middle of the road in college basketball. Wyoming ranks 5th in the country offensively in taking those shots. So it'll be a lot of screening, a lot of ball movement for Wyoming. I think they have some success here in a game that should see plenty of bricks. I think San Diego State's going to be the one shooting most of those. I like Wyoming here. I think they win this game outright. It would not surprise me if they win this game by 5 points or so. So getting 1.5 points in the game, I think they're going to win by 5 is a really nice situation here. Two good defensive teams, but Wyoming is the team that can only score, and they are playing on their home court. And when you're looking at pace, the teams playing on their home court, the teams I'm looking for, I prefer them being a favorite in that regard. But hey, from a betting standpoint, getting them at 1.5, 2 points, I like Wyoming. I think this is a statement game for this program.
So let me ask you this about the Cowboys. And really, because San Diego State is now, what have they won? They've covered their last 4. They've won 6 of their last 7. They're playing their best basketball of the year right now. And Wyoming, I've cashed a couple of tickets with the Cowboys at home this year. The Utah State game push by the skin of their chinny chin, the Boise State game in the first meeting, an overtime game against Colorado State. It feels like, how do I say it? Wyoming's been on the right end of a lot of coin flips. A whole lot of coin flips. And San Diego State looks like they're playing their best basketball of the year right now. Do either of those two factors concern you here?
Let me take a look at your winning of the coin flip. Let's take a look at Wyoming so far this season. They're 1-1, 1-2, 2-2, 3-2, 3-3, 3-4 this year. There's been 4 games they should have won, they lost. There's 3 games they should have lost, they won. So I think it's a situation for myself. When you take a look at those games, their winning percentages should have been 90%, 50%, 50%, 50%, 42%, 90%, and 50%. That tells me they've been unlucky in that regard, at least from a shot quality situation. So good points. Problem is, I don't think the data backs up your thoughts in that regard, at least from the shot quality metrics. But it is a good point. That's why I always say people, they don't, unless you watch every game a team plays, you really don't know how good they are. And for as many games as are out there in college basketball, as many games we'd like to watch and try to watch, you can't watch every game. So if you're out there watching 1 or 2 games from each team and making your judgments on that, it's not the way to do it. You got to be able to read the stats. And that's why I love the shot quality website and the stats that they provide, because none of us can watch as many games as these guys do. And they've got people out there charting the games and watching them from the arenas. So you got to take that into account. And I think it's an excellent website. And there are other websites out there. It costs you a pretty penny, but I've already paid that money, so you don't have to do it. So let's get some more winners in that regard.
Yeah, the one of the other luck factors, I guess, is Ken Palms. They've got Wyoming 26th luckiest out of 358. So in that regard, but that's basically, I believe, just, straight up one-loss games they should have won or lost. It's not really doesn't factor in point spread or anything else. So I don't use that one too much. Although when you have a close price game like tonight, I guess maybe. But I think the setup is good. And also don't forget the altitude for Wyoming against a beach team. San Diego State has been much weaker on the road this season, and they will be in the thin air and altitude for the first time in Wyoming this season. Brian, $9 Monday. We didn't talk any NHL, but I know you've been smoking it in hockey. I believe you're on a 35-12 run in the NHL. You got a $9 best bet in pro hockey and also conference tournament play. Did I see something about that? Do you dare release the first conference tournament play at WagerTalk.com this year for $9 Monday?
Yeah, I did. I didn't expect to have anything, but I went back and looked, and that's probably my best college basketball play of the day. And that's up right now for $9. And also hockey, been terrific season, 35-12 run. Just a couple days ago on Saturday, released 3 underdogs, including the Philadelphia Flyers, a plus 150, and Edmonton Oilers, a plus 175. Both came in for us. And to touch on Teddy's point, yes, Wyoming, if I take a look at the shot quality numbers, for the record, Wyoming is 23-5. They should be 21-7. So in that regard, Teddy is correct, and those were some good numbers there. But the games that I look at are the ones that they should have won that didn't, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's been a terrific season right now, and we've got our top play up in hockey, got our top play up in college basketball. I'm still working on the NBA games for today, unlike the other ones where we know pretty much who's going to play. NBA is always one where I tend to take a better look as the day goes on and get more information. But it's been a great season. Number 1 in hockey, number 2 in college basketball. Let's get a couple more winners here for you today.
And once again, that's $9 Monday for Bryan Leonard, Marco D'Angelo, myself, Steve Merril, Teddy Covers, everybody at WagerTalk.com. $9 Monday. It's that simple. And Teddy, I forgot to mention we have a huge college basketball special for everybody site-wide right now. The rest of the college basketball season for $177. It's the lowest price of the year. This gets you the next week of the regular season, the next couple weeks of the conference tournaments, and then all of the postseason, CIT, CBI, NIT, whatever else they have this year. I haven't even checked yet. But most importantly, the NCAA tournament through April 4th. So once again, the next month and a half, the rest of college basketball, $177. I've been number 1 the last 2 years in college hoops. It's well documented. We all know it. Teddy's got a big play tonight. I'll lay it, play it. If you're going to lay it, play it. An under-the-radar NBA $9 Monday. But once again, $177 gets every capper you want for the rest of the college basketball season. Mix and match. And then every best bet tonight, $9 Monday. Teddy, we'll do this again tomorrow on Tuesday. Thank you to Marco and Brian. Take us home.
Sure. And stay tuned, of course, on this channel right here on Wager Talk TV. I'll be doing the opening line report at the top of the hour with Drew Martin. So stay tuned. We've got more free content for you coming up. That's going to wrap it for the Monday edition of Wager Talk Today. I want to thank Bryan Leonard. I want to thank Marco D'Angelo. I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your day to hang out with us. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel. 9 a.m. here on the left coast. Noon for you back east. Between now and then, enjoy the games and good luck.
Between now and Selection Sunday on March 13th, there are still tons of regular season college basketball action to go. Plus, all of the conference tournaments and Wager Talk and Sports Memo are announcing their March Madness Bonanza special, which includes the rest of college basketball regular season, conference tournaments, NCAA tournament through the national championship, and any plays released in the NIT or CBI tournaments. Sign up for this promotion now at your favorite handicappers homepage and get the rest of the college basketball season through the national championship on Monday, April 4th for just $177. That's under $5 a day for one of the best betting experience in sports. Act fast as the March Madness Bonanza special is only available for a limited time.